So after school, I got a job at Morgan Stanley in Brooklyn office and worked in mortgage-backed securities. But it was a job to me. Like it was economics, learned about, corporate world. And it was good, but I had other aspirations.
What were those other aspirations?
So I completely switched gears and started in 2006. I took a package from Credit Suisse and started. I had already had a company called vMix, stands for Video Mix, and doing video remixes. So I was the pioneer of video remixing.
Good day, everybody. Welcome back to Confronting the Impossible. I'm your host, Leo Jacobs, and we're going to be discussing, again, a beautiful and wonderful guest, Aundre Oldacre. Aundre, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Leo.
My pleasure, my pleasure. So with Aundre, we're going to discuss what we always do at the Confronting the Impossible is we discuss the trials and the tribulations of those that have been through it and that have persevered. And today's discussion is going to mainly focus on personal, individual, and business impossibilities and how Aundre traverses that. So without further ado, let's get into it. Aundre,
Absolutely.
give us a background of who you are and what you have done. And let's have it. Let's talk about it.
How you doing? Aundre Oldacre, managing partner of Aora Development. I grew up in Wheatley Heights, New York, which is in Long Island,
Very cool.
right on the Suffolk County. A board of Suffolk in Nassau County. Went to a public school. Was a very good athlete. Ran track at the University of Virginia. Was MVP my fourth year.
Very cool.
So ran the 400 and 800 in UVA and had a full track scholarship. So
Very nice.
Yeah.
So you were a track athlete.
yes.
And has that been an impact on the world of business for you?
Sure. I mean, it requires a tremendous amount of discipline, right?
How did you attain that? Were you born with that?
Well, I was always a good athlete. So I got scholarship offers in soccer, basketball, and track.
Oh, wow.
But track obviously led me to the path. I finished third in New York State in the 400 meters, and then ended up going down to UVA.
So being third, that's a big feat. How did you build that resilience? How did you confront that?
So, growing up, my dad was very strict. I'm Jamaican American. My parents are first generation Jamaican here to the States. Actually, both my older brothers were born in Jamaica. So we had discipline. We had, we were building rental houses. I was doing a lot of manual labor and work in
Jamaica?
No, here in New
York,
in Long Island. I was confronted with having to do a lot of labor that other folks would farm out, like raking almost half acre of land every in the fall and mowing lawns and doing a bunch of chores. Right, my older brothers were 8 and 6 years older, so when they moved out, I was doing a lot of the chores by myself. Right.
And that redundancy built that discipline.
Absolutely.
Were you doing it with your dad?
Yes. So some with my dad, and then we had a rental house close by, so I learned to do all sorts of renovations, even though I, begrudgingly early in my life, and I'd rather be outside playing with friends, but learned to not be afraid of looking at a gut renovation, which I did later in my life, right?
How old were you there?
Teenager.
16, 17, 18, 19?
Yep.
And were you a track star then?
Yes. So when I said third in New York State, that was in high school.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So how did you get into that track?
So I was, first started out with soccer, was very good. I was on a travel team. We traveled, a bunch of places, Canada, Maryland, a bunch of tournaments. We had a very good team locally. Going on into high school, was starting to get looks, for scholarships. And
Did your dad push you to do that?
yes, but it was once I was good, and it really became self-inflicted. Like
I
really
think I
wasn't
want
motivated.
to know more. I think I want to know more about why you believed you were good. Why you believe you were good. Where does that come from? I mean, for the people here, how does it come to you that you're great at something and you want to continue that?
Sure.
How do you answer that question?
I mean, I was scoring a lot of goals. I was one of the better performers in Long Island.
So it was a comparison amongst your peers.
Exactly.
And you said you were ahead, objectively.
Yes.
But were you ahead subjectively?
Yes.
So subjectively, so the objectivity led to the subjectivity that you were great.
Yeah. So for instance, in my high school team, I was moved up to varsity. Actually, my junior high school was 7th through 9th. I was moved up to varsity from 9th grade. So I'd go to the high school from 9th grade. I was supposed to do the same in basketball, but my principal didn't want me to do both. So, but as a 9th grader, I was the fastest on the team. Period.
And you quit that at some point.
Well, no, I didn't quit. Well, soccer, I mean, in college, yes, I moved on to track full time. But I actually thought of walking on to the to the soccer team, even though I had offers from various other places like Georgetown and Syracuse and other places. UVA was the #1 school in the country. They won 3 out of 4 national championships while I was there. They were recruiting nothing but All-Americans, so it was quite intimidating.
So, interestingly enough, you find yourself in a suit, not in a track suit.
Yeah.
Why is that?
Well, you got to grow up.
So tell me about that. What do you mean by that? What did you have to let go? Did you have to let go of something? Did you have to
No,
grow?
I mean it's the natural progression of life, right? I was a scholar athlete, but then you move on to business world. So I started out working in finance, I was an econ major, economics, and moved into I worked at Morgan Stanley in mortgage-backed securities, and then later moved into worked at Credit Suisse, and then I completely switched gears.
So I deeply appreciate the pivot, and there's reasons for that. Mm-hmm. But it sounds to me, and I just want to challenge you here.
Sure.
It sounds to me that you were great at those things. Why not continue? Why not continue those things?
I wasn't Olympic level good.
So there was resistance there.
Sure.
There was good and great amongst your peers, and then there was, hey, you're just not cutting it for Olympian status.
Sure.
So you tried.
Yeah. Well, I tried as hard as I could, but I was good
until some point.
And
how did you confront that impossibility?
Oh, it was a means to an end, right? It was a track scholarship. I was highly competitive. I loved it. It was grueling. It took a lot of discipline to manage both your schoolwork and the track workouts, because track, unlike most other sports in college, you start a week or two after you go to school in August, right? And you finish after school ends. So whereas most sports have a off season, you're training all winter, and then when you come back from winter break, you have the first week back all the way. You start winter track, and then you go into spring track, and then that continues on till after school is finished.
So, at some point, you found out, okay, Leo, I'm great, but I'm not great for Olympian status. What went through your mind?
Time to get a job. Time to move back home and get a job.
So it was truly a means to an end.
Sure.
Did you feel inside that's something you had to let go, or is it kind of like just
No, I mean, I knew pretty early that I wasn't going to be Olympic status, but I was good, right? I placed, I think, 5th in the ACC in the 400, I think, and the 800 in different years. But I was good, not elite.
Yeah. So you made a pivot. You went into effectively business.
Yes.
And you said something about going to college and doing mortgage-backed securities. Tell me about that.
So after school, I got a job at Morgan Stanley in Brooklyn office, and worked in mortgage-backed securities. But it was a job to me. Like, it was economics. Learned about corporate world, and it was good. But I had other aspirations.
What were those other aspirations?
So I completely switched gears and started in 2006. I took a package from Credit Suisse and started. I had already had a company called VMix, stands for Video Mix, and doing video remixes. So I was the pioneer of video remixing.
You have experience in creativity with music.
Yes.
Would you consider that creativity in running as well, or no?
Not really. No.
It would be more athletic,
Yeah,
more sports.
exactly.
So in this specific sense, you started doing video remixes for what?
So think of an audio remix where different artists over different beats and different songs, but I was doing it, adding the music video with it, right? So I was doing it for television shows. I kind of had, I say I have the reverse DJ practice. Most DJs go from house parties to clubs to the radio to TV. I went straight to TV. I was doing production for the Weekend Vibe show, for Vibe Awards, for a little bit for ESPN.
How'd you make that pivot?
So I got a break with BT and was doing remixes first for Weekend Vibe, but then I was doing mixes for a show called Rap City and 106 in Park. They were popular.
I know them. Yeah.
They were popular shows in the late 90s and early 2000s. And I had a segment called The Video Mix, and it quickly became the most popular segment of that show.
How long did you do that for?
I did that for about 6 or 7 years.
And how old were you then?
About late 20s, early 30s.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the mortgage-backed securities, you didn't like it?
Yeah. So at the same time, I bought my first brownstone in Brooklyn, which is what led me to real estate.
Interesting.
So
Tell me about that.
I bought a brownstone. I did what's called an 80-20, so 80% debt and another 20% debt, which you can never do again.
Right.
Well, so I took basically 100% financing. I took the money that I had from my that I had saved up and from my package, and did all the renovations. I did complete gut renovation.
What do you mean by package?
So I took a layoff package.
Aha.
Yeah.
From Credit
So
Suisse.
yes, so I got offers to be in other areas, but I knew I wanted to do my media business, so I took the package.
Aha. And you wanted to do the media business, so you were doing the media. I'm assuming that generated revenue.
Yes, of course.
And you bought your first brownstone.
Yes.
Can I know where?
Brooklyn, Crown Heights.
Nice.
Yeah.
So
So
I
it's a
used
3-family.
Okay. Tell me about it.
Yeah. So, I mean, when I bought, you have to have vision, right? Because
You have to have vision. Yeah.
across the street there was a graffitied up building. There was an old hospital that they were converting from a hospital to residential, and they had just finished converting it. So, there was a methanol clinic on a block next to me. It was a shade.
bad.
It was a seedy area.
Okay.
Right? I showed people, there was walls that were, missing, and there was blacked out windows from the former owner. They were smoking crack in there.
And why did you decide to buy it?
Because I wasn't afraid. I had done it before. Like I told you, growing up, I had built a patio with my dad. We had fixed up a rental house. If I didn't have that upbringing, I would never have taken on this project, because I know what it takes. I know how much it costs. I know what it takes, the people to hire. I had that sort of background and experience to take on such a venture
Alone.
alone.
And your dad was there before. Your dad was not there when you purchased this.
No. I mean, he came and did a little help and gave me advice, but this was alone.
It was autonomous, or more autonomous than otherwise would be.
Exactly.
And what had that experience taught you? Were you successful?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that brownstone was the anchor for me in real estate, since it's, that house has almost 4x'd.
You still have it?
Yeah, absolutely.
And you said don't ever do the 100% financing. I mean, this is
No, you can't, right? The
So-
banks won't let you do that anymore.
won't let you do that anymore, but you did it. Tell me how you
Yes.
did it.
So at the time, you could do 80% for your first loan, 20% for your second loan, and then use your cash to
Renovate.
renovate.
And was that successful?
Yes, absolutely was. But I had a high second mortgage. So my second mortgage was almost 12, 13%. So I had to get out of that second mortgage quickly.
But you weren't afraid of that.
No.
And why is that?
Because I knew I was going to be able to renovate quickly, stay on my guys. I was living in the house. So I lived in every apartment. There's 3 apartments. I lived in every apartment while I was renovating. Couldn't afford to be renting didn't have the luxury of renting on the side. And so I lived there. I was there every day monitoring all the GC work. If they were slacking off, I would quickly, move on to somebody else.
So you talk about vision. You said you had a vision. You have to have a vision. And you talk about experience, and you were not afraid. And you talk about being athletic, and you talk about creativity. I can't really pin you down, to be quite frank with you, right? In one breath, you're doing your own renovation. Another breath, you're doing mortgage-backed securities. Another breath, you're doing something with athleticism. And then you're doing production of video. But there seems to be one theme that is consistent. I wanted to ask you what that theme is.
Creativity and imagination. I'm able to see and synthesize things that I feel like other people may miss.
Well, where did you get that?
Just inherent.